There we go. Now that we have our sensor spacer attached, riveted on so it doesn't fall off while I maneuver it around in here, I'm going to install it. Now, last time I was working up there, I ran into a little friend. Hopefully he's not there anymore. And it's way up there. You won't be able to see anything. There's no way I'm getting a camera in there. But if you're taking it out, you know where it goes. There's a lot of stuff that happens out of the driver's side of the hood here. We've got to add the clutch master cylinder, we got to add the clutch pedal, and we've got to change the exhaust around, yank off the manifold, and put something better on there. So it's worth spending some time clearing some room under here, because you're going to spend a while changing things. And the little more room you have, the better it'll be to work on. Now we get to the fun stuff, putting in that clutch pedal. I've cleared away the washer reservoir. I also took out the air filter. You don't need to do that necessarily, but it's going to give me a little more access to the exhaust manifold. The last one I showed you was a 94, which the factory stamps out the holes for the clutch pedal already. And they just put a block-off plate on it, which is real handy. All you do is take off the block-off plate and you're done. The later models, the 96 through 98, it's not quite that easy. The holes are not stamped in place, but they did dimple them, so you have the locations done. Let me show you that. All right, there are the holes. You can see you have a top, a large middle where the rod goes through, and a bottom one. So there's 2 bolts, and then the big hole where the actual master cylinder cup goes through and the rod that actuates it goes. Also, you have 2 dimpled holes right here. Those are exactly where the clutch reservoir goes. So all the bolt holes are already here, ready to go. You just have to drill them out. Now, on the early model 94s, 93, 94, 95s, the brake pedal is a little bit narrower, so you usually only have to cut off one side. On this one, being a 97, and probably the same for all 96s through 98s, the pedal's a little wider, so we're going to trim off a little more. Just use a pedal pad to mark where we want it. Now, it would not be a bad idea, pull that off again, to add a bead of weld on this side to make up for the one that you cut off. And if you want to, add a brace on the other side to make sure that's very sturdy, because it's a brake pedal and you need those, well, if you have brakes. But in this case, I'm just going to add a little bit of bead on this side, not worry about that side, and I'll get to that when I have the welder out. For now, we're going to keep going with the pedals. Now we're going to check on the back side of the firewall on the interior side before we drill the holes for the clutch pedal. Let's make sure there's no wires or anything under there. Now the clutch pedal bracket is going to come through the firewall in this area where this little bracket is. Right here, the wiring harness is something you don't want to drill through, but on this one it's pretty far away. There's a little bit of goo here. Better make sure we get that out of there. We don't want to screw up our hole locations. Since the factory is so nice, and put them in there for us. you want to get a large hole centered, one trick you can use is eyeball center on a big washer, and that gives you a lot better location to mark your hole. It gives you a better eyeball on where center is on the big hole if you have something concentric like this to work with. So these don't have to be exact. Here's sandwiching the firewall between a metal bracket and the slave cylinder, or the master cylinder. So the master cylinder is going to be on this side, the bracket's on the other side. It's going to sandwich this firewall. So if the holes are a little big or off center, it's not going to make a big deal. It's not going to make a big difference. And there's that bracket we saw from the other side. And we're going to go ahead and take that thing out of there, but from the other side. This harness goes right where that clutch bracket needs to go. So we're going to just pop it off and move it to the side. And pulling, move that off to further on the driver's side. That should get it the most out of the way. And in goes our clutch pedal bracket. This is a complete assembly with the pedal and everything. There she goes. Alright, if you buy a clutch pedal from me, you get 4 nuts attached to the studs. 2 of them are for the studs where the clutch master cylinder goes on. The other 2 go straight up into studs that are already in your Jeep. You just have to get your hand to them. You want to put them on a bit, but not tighten them down, because you're going to want that whole pedal bracket to be able to move back and forth. So when you tighten that clutch master cylinder down, it's going to slide on those slots till it gets its final position. Then you tighten the ones pointing upwards. Here I have a complete pre-bled clutch system. This is going from the master cylinder, has a reservoir, it's already full of fluid, all the way to the slave cylinder. Now these are still available. This is for a 93 to 94 ZJ with the 4-liter AX15. Obviously we are not using an AX15, but it happens to use the same slave cylinder. It works fine. So this whole thing will bolt right in. It's meant for this vehicle. Now the trick is, like I said, you got to clear the way for this slave cylinder, because if you don't disconnect a line, it's tricky to run all this whole thing through. But I've taken out the steering shaft, I've taken out the bracket that holds the fuel lines on the side, and let's see if we can slide this in there. I'm going under the brake booster. You see how this is tricky. These studs weren't here last time we did a under hood shot. Those are the ones from the bracket from stickshiftzj.com, and those are what bolt this master cylinder in. Alright, clutch master cylinder is in. Now I am going to hook on the reservoir. There we go. There we go. Slave cylinder's in there. And there she is. We got a clutch pedal. Now the other thing I got is I extended my starter wires. The connections are temporary, we'll call it that. But I really want to hear this thing run. And I'm pretty darn close to it. So I'm going to see if I can get it running tonight. Okay, we have no steering hooked up, no exhaust hooked up, wiring held together by vice grips, but I want to see if it moves. So let's find out. It moves. That's nice. Alright, now I got good inspiration to finish up the rest of it.